Shannon, I am so excited about our conversation today. And before we even get started, please just share a little bit about what you do.
Oh man. Well, I do a lot of things. I have a tax business based in Southern California. I do individuals, businesses, all kinds of different taxes. I'm also an educational speaker, so I travel around in the off season, doing continuing education seminars for other tax pros. So that's pretty much my little elevator pitch for my business.
hmm Great. So basically, you have your tax prep business and you're working with your clients, and then you're also doing trainings showing other tax preparers how to be able to move forward, some of the things that they need to know to have a profitable firm.
Absolutely.
Great. And one of the things I wanted to ask right from the beginning is before we connected, what were things like for you and your firm?
If I'm being totally honest, they were a bit of a mess. I'm a solopreneur, I think is what we call us nowadays. And I've actually grown my team since we started working together, which has been awesome. And I've been, before I was trying to do everything myself and struggling a lot with being able to focus on the things that I wanted to focus on because I was too busy running around trying to do all of these other things. And so that's been just in the last several months, there's been some really amazing improvements as far as that goes.
And I think that that's so true for most of us, especially when we have, well, you have an office, but when you're solo, is that you are wearing all the hats and you're doing work that is possible to be delegated to somebody else. You just have nobody hand it off to. So the fact that your team has grown, just want to acknowledge that advancement because it's been able to let you do some of the higher level things. And if think back to before we met also, was there a specific reason why you started looking for help?
I think primarily there were several factors I would say. The first one is I think one of the more common ones, I think we all kind of struggle with this is just pricing. It's really hard to know what to charge people. Even having worked at a couple of the retail preparation places, I know what they were charging, but it was still really difficult to pin down what I needed my fees to be. And the other thing, and again, I think this is pretty common amongst people in our industry, was just the burnout and the overwhelm and having no work-life balance and feeling like I could never take a vacation because if I leave the office for 10 minutes, the whole thing burns down. And so struggling with all of those things and just knowing that it wasn't sustainable and that there was going to be a pretty tremendous breaking point coming very soon. And I didn't want to get there. So
And I don't think that those are the reasons that any of us decide to open up our own business is because we want to feel trapped and tied to our business, working too many hours and not getting paid the right fees for that. So yeah. Part of what was going on is you realized that this might not be sustainable because you were just working too much. It was affecting your quality of life and that you weren't really charging the right fees. Does that sound about right?
Absolutely.
And I know that pricing is one of the most difficult things that any firm owner deals with, whether they're solo or even up to the big four. So how long were you maybe thinking about adjusting your fees and before you actually started doing it?
I would say, honestly, probably for a number of years before I actually really decided to put some strategies in place. But it's the struggle with, I think it's a really emotional kind of thing that we don't talk about that part of it a lot, but there's so much wrapped into pricing. It's not just as simple as let me hand you an invoice and we're done. There's, your self-worth is tied up in it and your emotional connection to your clients is tied up in it. And there are so many parts to it that I think sometimes it's hard to even really know how to go about making that change and dealing with the fear that people will leave and, all of the stuff that comes with that. So I think probably it had been, I would say really seriously, probably like 2 to 3 years that I had known that something had to change with my pricing.
And when you talk about your pricing and something had to change, was this with new clients coming in or with your current legacy clients that have been with you for so many years?
It was all of them.
Okay. So nothing had changed with anybody across the board for you?
Pretty much. I was charging the new clients a little bit more than the legacy clients, but not anywhere it should have been.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then when you did start getting some of the insights or the strategies on how to do that, what did you notice when you started approaching your legacy clients about your fee increase?
There was some pushback,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. And one of the things I think that was really helpful for me this year was just being really strong within myself, knowing what my own value was. And that made it easier to stand behind the pricing. If you're kind of wishy-washy about like, oh, well, I just don't know if I'm worth this much, it's harder to convince somebody else that you are. But my approach was always just, you know what, this is the value you get. If you don't see the value, that's okay. And we're
Mm-hmm.
not a good fit anymore. And that was a really effective, the words "we're not a good fit" have been like magic.
And one of the things that you did touch on, which I think is so important, was the emotions thing. So something changed within you about how you approach this, because I think previously, if you would have had pushback, you would have just said, "Okay, let's just not change anything."
Yeah,
So what did you notice for yourself?
I think a lot of it was just really, you know, thinking in terms of the value that I provide to people, not just, the actual input of the tax numbers, which, I hear people say, oh, you can just use TurboTax, but I don't believe that. Even for a simple return, I don't believe that. And I think that, I do way more education than you really have to, but I spend a lot of time in courses, writing courses, studying the law, so that I can know as much as I can possibly know and pass that along to the services I give my clients. And that is worth something. It's worth a lot, I think. And so really understanding that and internalizing that helped a lot when it came to invoice time.
And one of the things that I love to do is talk about how to be able to package your services, how to price them, how to have those conversations, and that we had connected beforehand. So were there any obstacles that you experienced when we were talking about moving forward and working together so I can help you get your rates up to where they ought to be?
Obstacles as far as the packaging, the package
No,
price.
obstacles to engaging my services and actually making the investment for your firm to be able to move in this direction.
I think that by the time I had come in and when I, saw your webinar that you did for us, I think I was already at a point where I knew that I needed to do something and I knew that it was going to be an investment. So I think for me, it was a pretty easy decision at that point.
Mm-hmm.
A year or two earlier, it might have been more of a, well, it's a lot of money or, but all the excuses that we make. But I think at that point I was just ready.
Mm-hmm. And I think that that is true for most of us as we get to a point where the pain of remaining the same is so much greater than the challenges that come with moving forward, that you just start looking at things differently, you become more open to it. So I appreciate that transparency. Okay, so one of the things I love is really getting into specifics. Are there any particular things you put in place that really start to grow your bank account as well as maybe freeing up some of your time?
Well, I think one of the things, just as a really base thing, has been the increase to my starting price, my base fee, which we've increased now twice since I worked with you. And I was surprised at how easily people said yes to it. And just that, increasing that amount has made a huge difference, bottom line wise. And the other thing I think this year, I still have quite a few clients. I lost a couple between this year and last year. There's always a little bit of attrition, but I think just the ease of the season this year was tremendously different than it's been the last couple years, to the point where friends and family members were commenting on, you seem calmer this year than you've been for the last 8 years of doing this. And so just having some systems in place and having these procedures and knowing, and we've talked about this in our sessions where, I'll be so frazzled, worked up, like I can't see a way out of a situation. And there's a really simple answer that I just wasn't able to see. And so having those solutions and being able to implement them has been really tremendous.
I think that also goes with the fact that when you're the firm owner, sometimes it's lonely at the top. You think that you have to do all the thinking yourself and have all the solutions yourself, and you're just overwhelmed and you don't always have the capacity. You don't even know where to start. So being able to be in a community of other people on the same path gives you insights on how somebody else approached it, or maybe even gives you inspiration that, oh, they did that, then I might be able to do that too. What was that part of what your experience has been by being in the community and then in the mastermind group coaching?
Yeah, definitely. I think just, and also knowing that other people are going through the same thing you're going through, and, being able to have that support. And I think that's really helpful.
And I want to also just acknowledge all the things that you've put in place, because increasing your fees is really, really difficult. What we think is going to happen and what actually does happen are sometimes two very, very different things. As you said, you've already done it twice. People have said yes, where you didn't expect it to be so easy. But the other thing that came out of it, and I want to just say, is we've had conversations that end of tax season, you weren't as frazzled as you had been in other previous seasons. And that part is priceless.
Absolutely. And even just these last, the end of this most recent season, one of my biggest struggles, I think, is delegating and letting go of doing everything, because if I'm not doing it, I don't know it's getting done and I can't control it. And that's hard for me. And so having now somebody on my team that I can really count on, who's doing those things, the administrative things that I used to always have to do, freed up so much time for me to be able to focus on actually preparing the returns, which is the stuff I like. And also, we were joking about this morning. Invoicing is always the last thing I did, because I was just so focused on getting the work out and hitting the deadlines and making sure that we did that sending the invoices happened sometime. And so having someone who's on top of sending out the invoicing has been amazing, because even for clients too, because it would start to be, the end of December and I'm like, Merry Christmas. Here's my invoice from last year. See you in a month. And so, getting away from that, I think, is better for everyone.
And the fact that I know that you're creative also, Shannon, that you have a passion of wanting to create more talks and topics and more speaking opportunities. And from what I've seen is that you've had a couple of road trips, so that you've been able to actually step away from working in your firm and doing some of these other things that really inspire you as well.
Absolutely. And it's sort of staggering. I'll tell you, I now have had two of my clients who signed on for my bookkeeping and business taxes package at the gold level. And I was thinking about it this morning, and my old tax preparation pricing, just those two clients replaces the income from probably 60 tax clients.
Okay, that is amazing. That two clients could replace 60 tax clients, which means that you're not charging rock bottom fees. And now you're able to actually enroll clients into something that has more value. So you've actually increased the value of a client.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And do you feel like there was a way that you approached it that allowed them to maybe see the value of moving forward with you that you didn't know how to do before?
Well, I think one of the things, and it's feedback I've gotten from a couple of clients that I've sent, we're getting ready to really implement these, the packages for this upcoming tax season. And the feedback I've gotten consistently has been that the clients really like the clarity of it. They really like knowing exactly what they're getting and having it really clearly spelled out. So there's no question about, well, I'm paying you this fee, but what do I get for that? It's all very clear. And I think that's something that's been really appreciated.
So that's where you create transparency.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I see is when you're moving away from time-based fees, whether it's a fixed fee or an hourly rate, over to value pricing, it's a little bit messier because it's not as formulaic. How do you actually look at coming up with a price for the different work that you're doing for clients when it's based on value instead of time?
I mean, I think that's one of the things that one of the struggles that I still have, but I think looking at the complexity of not just actually preparing the forms, but knowing, how much information do you have to be able to do this well? How much knowledge and training goes into doing this, and kind of using that lens as I look at what the overall pricing will be.
And that's something that I am so happy to hear, because what you're really saying is that you're looking at the value of having your expertise, that you do all this training, that you do teaching also, that you get this advanced education, so you know what applications and forms need to be done to give your clients the best tax advantage. And that you're leading with your knowledge as opposed to the technical parts of what you do and how many forms and how long it might take to fill out a form. So how has that transition been for you?
It's been really interesting. I think we're also used to, I didn't do a whole lot of hourly billing because I'm not good at billing at all, but I'm really bad at hourly billing. I'm just bad at time tracking. I don't like punching a clock. I don't like feeling like, like you say, the adversarial, I want more hours and they want less. I've always been sort of bad at that. And I've historically done a forms-based pricing for, my tax prep, but I think even the forms-based pricing doesn't really show the whole picture, because you could have two people who have the same form, but completely different levels of knowledge and expertise that are required. And so I think that goes into it a lot.
And by leading with your expertise, how has that led to maybe being able to, as you said, double, even triple some of the fees that your clients are paying you? And was there any pushback with some of those clients?
With the new clients, everyone who's come on board has been very, I tell them the price and they say that sounds good. And then we kind of just jump in and get moving. I think, and the people that don't want to pay it, they either never reach out again, or, I had one person who said, that's just not in my budget right now. And I said, I appreciate you letting me know if anything changes, I'm here. But also, like, in the past, my knee jerk would be to go back to that person and say, well, we could just do less for now. And then once things pick up, but that's how you get into this hole of, never being able to do anything fun from January to April, or really from January to October lately.
And some states, apparently, like California, could be November. So.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. So once again, you had to connect with your own value. And then, even though you were so client centered, be able to stand by it instead of caving in.
Well, and the truth is, what I've really, really realized this year is that it is really hard to be client centered if you're not charging enough, because you have to have so much volume that you will never be able to give your clients the kind of attention that you want, because you just have to say yes to everyone, and you have to churn these returns out. And I realized that that's not something I care to do. I want to be able to really take the time and work with my clients. And I don't want to cringe when I see the phone ring because I just don't have time to talk to this person right now. That's part of my practice that I really think one of the biggest shifts from the old model to the new model is just being able to give that time and attention to the clients that see the value in it.
With what you're saying then is that because you don't need as many clients to meet your revenue needs or even to continue to grow, you have the capacity to do advisory services. So if you compare like 2022 to 2023, how much more advisory services do you actually do, or more capacity for it, than you had the year before when you had a different model?
I think that, I'll be honest, this year is sort of a hard measure, because this year there was so much traveling over the summer, and that ate up a good chunk of the extra time that I had. I think that next year, when all of this is really fully implemented, I think that's when that difference will really start to show. Because by then, a lot of the clients who don't want to continue on with this pricing will have gone off somewhere else, and I will be able to take that time and schedule the meetings. I think doing one of the things we've spoken about is scheduling meetings with people ahead of time, rather than saying, hey, we'll just connect sometime between April and October. and actually putting these meetings on the books and saying, let's look at this when we can do something substantial, rather than, getting a call in November saying, what does it look like? So I think
Mhm.
that being proactive about those things is a huge part of where I'm moving my practice.
And part of that also that I've seen for you is that you're now taking charge of your firm instead of your firm taking charge of you.
Definitely.
And by being able to really manage your calendar better as a result of you being proactive with scheduling, it's allowing you to have the capacity for the advisory sessions, whereas before it just would have probably been a scramble.
Absolutely.
Anything else you feel you've been doing to fine tune things and continue to grow your revenues and expand what it is that you're offering?
I think one of the things we're really working on right now is just getting really effective systems in place and using the systems that we have already, and utilizing them really in a way that will help to minimize the amount of wasted time. One of my biggest issues, I think, is being sort of inconsistent in how I apply these systems. And it's absolutely my own fault. And I get busy and I'm like, well, we don't need to put them in the pipeline. I'll just do it this way. And then I find that it takes so much more time to track down information that I would have gotten if I had just used my own systems that I already have. So really being consistent with that, and fine tuning and streamlining and taking advantage of the people on the team, and finding different ways to free up more time also, so that I can focus on, doing the work that I love instead of the stuff that I don't like as much.
And as far as freeing up time, because your team has grown, what is some of the work that you were previously doing last tax season that you've been able to delegate and get off your plate?
So invoicing,
That's a blessing.
absolutely. A lot of the client communications, we've been doing introducing people to my office manager little by little, and
Mhm.
we'll do a big introduction when we start sending out the fee letters for this year, and just letting people know about the changes. Um, but she's doing all of the client onboarding and offboarding now, so everything up to the tax prep is done through her. And then once the tax prep is done, everything else is done through her. The electronic signatures, the wrap up, all of that is, she takes care of all of that. So
Mhm.
all I have to do is just the taxes, and communicate with clients about questions. And it's been really freeing.
That's significant. And I just appreciate you kind of explaining some of the things because I'm sure that it's inspiring somebody else. And that it's not like this is a no overnight process, it's an evolution. So, did you find that there were any places where you had to get out of your own way or maybe push through something, even though a part of you wanted to resist?
Absolutely. I think, like I said, for me, letting go of things is the hardest part, and just trusting that it's okay for someone else to do it, that I don't have to. That was a really big struggle for me. Um, and I think that just that, it was like such a huge victory for me to be able to say, it's okay. I don't have to do that. Um, it really has been really meaningful for just everything in this office, the way things get done. So that, I think, to me, is the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, um, yeah, I think that really, that, and the mindset shift away from, feeling like, um, the dollar is your value, and kind of talking yourself into knowing that that dollar amount should be higher.
Huge, huge. And some people think about it their entire career as a firm owner and never ever do anything. So the fact that you were able to implement is really, really something that you're building something that others dream about. So you're on the way to having a dream firm because the fact that you stepped into it, even though it was uncomfortable, I know it takes a lot of courage to make change.
But yeah, if you don't do it, it the end result of not making that change is it's not something I want to think about.
There's no turning back now, Shannon. You're on a roll.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now that you know how to value price your work, what do you see has also changed, whether it's business or personal?
Ooh, I think there really is, like, once you embrace that idea that your value is higher than you thought it was, I think that it has sort of an effect on everything. You know, you carry that out with you in the way that you deal with the world. I think kind of it really is. And especially, I hate to say this, but it is true, especially for women. I think it's one of the things that we struggle with in particular is pricing our value. And so that's made a really big difference just in general. And so when people come at me, if I tell them a price and they want to fight with me about it, it's a very calm place now where I'm not going to argue with you. If you don't think this is what you want to pay, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any bad feelings about you. You don't have to have bad feelings about me, but this is what it is. This is what I'm worth.
Okay, so because of the fact that you've been able to really stand by your value, do you think that there were some potential headache clients that you would have accepted and then regretted later on, and now we were able to prevent that from even happening?
Absolutely. Yep. I had actually a potential client who she called me several times a day for a couple of days, wanting to know how soon this work would be able to be done. After I reviewed the information and gave her a price, I never heard from her again.
And I want to just I love having very specific examples. So I know we haven't talked about this. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but you were sharing with me in an email about one client where you sent them an invoice, and when they actually made the payment, it was much higher, and you were thinking that you invoiced them for several tax seasons instead of one. Can you just expand upon that a little bit?
Yeah, so it's a new client this year, and I had given them a quote when they came in. Once we got in there, it turned out that the work was a little more complicated than I had anticipated. And I also had done another return for them, a separate kind of return. And so when I saw the payment come through, I thought that they were paying for both returns. And when I went to go put the payment into my accounting, it turns out that was just the price I had charged. It was a very happy surprise.
That was like a proud moment for me. Okay, we covered a lot of different things about your evolution, how you've been able to connect with your value, and then that translating that into your firm. Anything else that you feel would be helpful to share or mention?
I just think, if it's something that people are thinking about doing, but there's something holding them back, I say just do it. I mean, this has been, I don't want to like overblow it, but it really has been life changing for me. I mean, it just, the difference even in how I felt this tax season, where we haven't even really fully implemented everything. I'm so excited for what next year is going to look like. I can't wait to start putting everything in place, and I'm excited to be able to take back the control of things that had gotten a little out of my control. And we always joke when you're self-employed, especially in our business, you don't really have one boss, you have 600 or however many clients you have. And so being able to sort of take back that relationship a little bit and have more control over things has really been tremendous for me.
You're definitely on the path to having your dream firm. It is absolutely a process, and I feel very, very honored to be part of your team and working closely with you in this direction. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, get in touch, what's the best way for them to do that, Shannon?
You can always catch me at email. I'm at Shannon@shannonhalltax.com. That's even when I'm out of the office traveling, I still check in with my email pretty regularly. So that's the best way. There's also call my office if it's not, 5 days before a tax deadline.
I so appreciate this. I know that what we shared today is going to inspire someone else to finally connect with their value and make some changes. So thank you so much, Shannon. I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, thank you.